Hi, and welcome to this introduction of the RPX. My name is Koos Bierman. I'm based in Central South Africa, good old SA, and the nice-looking gentleman with me today on this recording, Tom Roman. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You're all the way out there in Sydney, Oz.
Sydney, Australia, yes. Just
Yeah.
last bit of the day.
You haven't been surfing, you've been in the studio all day.
Been working all day as normal.
We South Africans think that all Australians in Sydney surf all the time.
Well, fortunately, you're talking to an American.
So, yeah, to our listeners, this is a multi-international webinar. We've got the states represented, good old SA, and the Aussies there. So, Tom, today we're talking about the RPX method that you developed over many years, and we're now excited to bring RPX to South Africa, and we're actually on the verge of running our first course in Bloemfontein, and hopefully soon enough all over the country, and having everybody to come and experience RPX and how it can actually change the whole way we think of teaching our patients and how we can incorporate our patients into our treatments. So, Tom, before we get into that, just if you can just give us a small history of who you are and what you're doing at the moment.
Okay. I'm an American now living in Australia. My background is not in physiotherapy or exercise physiology. It's actually I have a master's in higher education, and I worked in the counseling profession for a while at the University of California. And in that journey of working in counseling, I was also involved in the health and fitness industry, teaching aerobics classes in the 1980s, but enjoying that for myself, but also experiencing in the 80s that whole mind-body wellness thing that was going on, where healthy body, healthy mind. And I discovered through movement training and exercise, clients that I were working with were better off and when they had to deal with depression and issues that they're going through. When I moved to Australia, I got involved in the fitness industry, changed careers, and one of the reasons I changed careers is because when someone decided they wanted to get fit, they had made a positive decision to create change in their life. And I saw it as an opportunity to create a change both for themselves, physically and psychologically. And as a result, I got involved into gyms, fitness industries, moved on into Pilates, because I was expanding my business repertoire and teaching classes all throughout that process. And one of the things I noticed that we had all this new ideas and exercises out there, but we were having trouble teaching people how to do it correctly because we saw the injuries keep coming up. And as a result of my Pilates experience, I started exploring the whole concept of how we teach movement. And I realized that we were just issuing exercises to people and hoping and assuming that they're going to get it and do it the correct way. But something was missing, and I kept seeing over and over that we weren't getting the results that were necessary to create real change. What I noticed was different was the fact that we looked at movement purely from a mechanical point of view. But movement, as I learned from working in counseling, is not just mechanics. It's actually a psychological and an emotional expression of who we are. Therefore, if we express ourselves through movement and what we're thinking and feeling, why are we not acknowledging that these feelings, emotions that people have may inhibit or encourage people to learn how to move more efficiently? So as a result of that experience and looking at approaching this problem of teaching movement more effectively, I looked at it from the point of view of an educator, someone in counseling. How do I create behavioral change rather than mechanics of the physical body?
Yeah, that's awesome, Tom, and I think that's what attracted me to the RPX. And you also involved at university level with training at the moment?
Yes, I work with University of New South Wales exercise physiologist program. The students come and do their 4th-year practical experience with us. It's a 10-week program that they work in our studios. It's an opportunity for me to, I think, give them an opportunity to learn about our method, but also to incorporate it into their existing programs. I find that they get the mechanics, they get the research down very, very well, what they need to do, but they forget the human aspect of how do you teach a person how to move? How do you interact with them in a way that enables them a certain amount of trust and understanding and without judgment to enable them to achieve things they've never been able to do before?
That's awesome, Tom. Right, I think let's get into our little presentation. There's not
Okay.
much of it, so and then we can discuss the RPX model.
Great. Let's start with the pyramid. The pyramid is pretty simple when you look at it, but yet it contains an awful lot of concepts in there. The first, when you're looking at it, you see this big circle. It's a client-centered environment. What does that mean? I borrowed a lot from the counseling environments because I saw that behaviors were changed in counseling environments. If behaviors are changed there, and we've documented how that's done, why are we not applying some of those principles into the movement training environment? One of the therapists that I really acknowledged the most in helping create this sort of change in the movement training environment was Carl Rogers. So therefore, we used a lot of his principles of a client-centered approach to counseling and in the movement training environment. And that is really basically creating an environment of trust, acceptance, and non-judgmental. And that may sound simple, straightforward, and don't we all do that? But we don't, because what we don't realize is that movement carries a lot of emotional baggage with it. And I can simply bring up an idea of, well, has anyone ever dropped the ball during an important game? Or was the last person to be picked on the team? Or tripped in when they were supposed to go one direction and everyone saw you fall? And how do you feel from that experience? Everyone will remember feeling not good enough, inadequate, letting the people down. Those are emotional connections that stay with us. And unless we create an environment that we can actually acknowledge those, we will forever have those as inhibiting our ability to teach them new skills. So therefore, the big circle represents the environment of trust, openness, understanding that we've developed with the patient so that we can enable them to want to identify what their own problems are without being judged, without being, oh God, you can't do this, and that we typically do in a competitive environment, and enables them to understand it and come to terms with it, and also come up with their own solutions to it. That's the most important thing. When it's this sort of environment that's trust and openness, and when they can see the problem, then we as facilitators in the movement environment can help teach them how to solve it. The next thing we have there is positive stress to promote learning. One of the things that I learned is that when we have ingrained patterns of movement into our brains, they become automatic. We don't think about them, and there's no reason to change them. We don't think about, for example, walking or standing. We just go and do it. If we're going to change those ingrained patterns or alter them, we have to create an environment where the brain has to go, oh, I'm not sure how to do this. How do we go about taking the first step or standing on a platform that I'm not familiar with? That's necessary because why waste the energy to create change if there's no reason to do so? If you're going to learn something new, you have to have a reason. You have to create meaning. Therefore, creating a positive stress environment with the client-centered approach, one of the ways that we do this is through balanced training. Now, balanced training, I believe, is the foundation of all movement. And if we cannot balance and find out where we are in space, then there's no point adding complex movement, weight, or load into the body. We're setting ourselves up for disaster, hoping for the best, relying on old patterns of movement that may or may not get us through the task. Balance is, in my mind, the beginning of everything. The first thing a child learns to do is to coordinate and learn how to stand. And when they stand, the big challenge is then learning how to walk. Now, what's interesting about the walking experience is everyone remembers a child for the first time walking. They take one step, two steps, their face is ecstatic and joyful, and then what happens? Bam, they fall. But that fall doesn't stop them from getting up again. What kept them up from that bad experience of falling was the thrill, the excitement of finding where they were in space. Balance has almost hot-wired into us when we find it to want to do more. It encourages us to grow and learn more things, particularly when it comes to movement. So a positively stressed environment is one that encourages the brain to learn, promoted mostly by creating an environment that's slightly unstable, but safe so that we don't get overwhelmed and can learn to acquire the skills that are necessary to do more. Going on from the pyramid there, you can see the next one would be the 4-pillar check. And we also have on the side here, slow motion training and sequential training. The 4-pillar check, I'll go back to that, is basically we look at the body as a system. I never try to train someone in just isolation or in parts. It has to be done as a system because the body works as a whole. The 4 pillars represent strategic points on the body where we can look and scan quickly to see that the body's in good alignment. One, the 4 pillars is the pelvis. The second one would be the shoulder stability. The third one would be the spine. Is it actually elongated? And the fourth is a good, strong core control. In other words, can we stabilize the spine while we're putting load onto the limbs to do the tasks that are necessary? These 4 pillars are used throughout every exercise, all the time, and we don't sacrifice one in order to achieve the task of stabilizing another. We always learn to train the body as a whole, because that at the end of the day, that's what needs to be done for efficiency of movement. You also see sequential training on the other side of the pyramid. Sequential training is really just the building blocks of movement. We realize that the brain learns from patterns, pattern recognitions. So we build patterns of movement that are successfully achieved. And how do we know they're successfully achieved? When we achieve stability, balance, and motor control. When we see that in a patient, when they're learning a new skill, then what do we want to do? We add another layer of movement to that pattern that's already been successfully achieved. Why? Because the brain kind of recognizes something that it knows and done in the past, and then we'll build on learning future experiences using these simple blocks of movement. We use also slow motion training on the other side of the pyramid. You're going to see that. What does that mean? Simply, eccentric training. Why is that important? Well, it teaches doing it slow, enables the brain to figure out what needs to be done, the sequence, the timing. It also is great for endurance, motor control, strength. We all know the importance of eccentric training, but we also know it's never really taught well or effectively in the gym environment or the rehab environment. We underestimate the importance of learning it. So basically, we have the positive stress to promote learning at the base of the pyramid, encircled by the client-centered environment. The steps are using slow motion training and sequential training, using the 4 pillars as a check to assess whether we're able to do what? Add blocks of movement, sequential training. Those blocks could be increased load, range of movement, speed, any of the variables that you want to put into that environment of movement to learn the next step. And again, you're going to see that at every step, we have an assessment process that takes place, because we don't want to add another piece of more complex movement if they can't stabilize and understand what is meant to be done to achieve the task. That's the other important thing about what we do. In order to create change in motor control, you have to create meaning. There has to be skin in the game. So that skin in the game is they has to understand the process, which is what we were said earlier, going back to client-centered approach, which is owning and understanding the problem. Once people can see that, they can add and find their way out if given the right environment. The last little bit up there is we have practice in multiple physical environments. What does that mean? Practice in multiple physical environments is this. Once a pattern has been achieved successfully, it's not good enough just to do it 1,000 times and hope that they're going to be able to apply it in the unknown being the world that they live in. What we try to do is take that pattern and replicate it in another physical environment. Say, for example, you work in the posterior chain, the hamstring, glutes, calves when you're going uphill on an incline trainer. Where else could I work that chain? Well, I could go to the reformer doing scooters, standing lunges. And I could add an unstable surface with that as well. I could also do it on vibration platform or with cable crossovers. I could do it in a number of different environments. The point of what we're trying to achieve is that we want to do the pattern that was achieved successfully, do it a number of times so the neural pathways in the brain start developing up what to do and do it efficiently, but add slight variations to each of those patterns so that the brain can do what? Better predict the unknown based on past experience that it's gone through. So these practical environments, physical environments, are a key tool in helping us learn to adapt based on prior success. Finally, we go up to the pyramid, we can see we have practice and we have agility as our ultimate, the ability to quickly adapt to the needs and unknown needs of our environments around us. Underneath that pyramid, at the very end, we have assess, correct, perfect, and perform. And those are the 4 stages within the method. Assess goes through every stage. Every exercise, every session is an assessment. There's never a time when we're not assessing what a person is doing to make sure that they're able to do the task at hand efficiently, and are we ready to add more. Correction is teaching them how to do the movement more efficiently, creating an understanding for themselves, meaning about what's not working and how they can improve it for themselves. Perfection is the area of multiple environments. Of once success has been achieved, we apply it to multiple environments to improve performance and develop those neural pathways of learning. And the last step is performance, or perform. Now, that's an area that's open to the more elite athletes, those who are at the high end. So they have, say, sports performance issues that are coming back to us, a golfer wants to improve their swing. So what we do is we learn to break down that specific task that they do in their sports performance environments, find out what some of the missing links are, find out gaps in it, improve, teach, assess, and then have them go back into their sport and practice that to improve performance. The method is one that's adaptable for rehab, just normal function, fitness, and the high performance populations.
Yeah, Tom, the pyramid's a mouthful, and it actually encompasses what the essence of RPX is, and that's why we wanted to do this little video for people out there who's not, well, there's very few people in South Africa that's familiar with RPX, but it's not a new exercise regime. We're not trying to teach people a new series of exercises. We're actually trying to show people how we firstly can teach people, because as health professionals and as rehab and movement specialists, that's actually a gap that we have. We don't know, actually, we've got all the knowledge, but how do I get that knowledge over to my client or my patient, and how do I actually effectively teach them something that they might be afraid of or have got some barrier to? And I think that's the big key for us in the RPX, and then the whole pyramid, where we structure it in such a way that it's progressive for the patient or the client, and that it's a safe way of doing rehab.
So one of the things that I developed with this program was the fact that, being an American, I was very conscious of injury prevention. The lawsuits and stuff that go on in the States, I'm very conscious of. How do we best protect a patient when they're going through a movement training? Because we're putting them in a risky environment when we do movement. And one of the best ways I thought was this environment of always assessing before they add load and movement into their bodies. And the other thing that I found was really important and different in our method is, in this method, there is no one piece of exercise, no one piece of equipment, no one type of training that's the best. It's whatever training that is necessary to teach the person to create meaning and understanding of how to do a movement correctly. So for some people, it could be vibration platform, it could be working the weights, the free weights, it could be in Pilates reformer exercises, or it could be on RIP 60 suspension. It doesn't matter. The point is, our job is to teach them how to do the movement efficiently, right? And if it's on suspension and that's what they understand, that's where we go first. Because and once we have the tools, then we're not limited to any environment of learning. We have all of them to choose from. There are yoga poses and movements which would be excellent to help facilitate understanding of certain activation of muscles or rotational patterns. All these things can be applied, no matter what your background in training is. They can all be brought into this method. So that's one of the things I found was very useful. And because in the industry, we always hear, here's the next best exercise, this will solve the problem. No. This is
the next quick fix, or the next device that's going to solve all the problems. And with this, we can basically use anything. We can use simple calisthenics if we need to.
Absolutely. So, but in any gym, it can be used and fitted out for it, or any training facility can be used to adapt the method to it.
Tom, we're going to run the RPX in the first half of May, and for anybody watching this video, there's a treat for the guys who's going to attend this this first course in South Africa. Tom Roman might actually be there himself to grace us with some of his amazing balance feats and how he developed the system. Myself and Corne will be the main presenters of the course, but it's going to be a brilliant opportunity to work with somebody that developed the RPX system, Tom, and we're looking forward to have you in SA again and to help us establish RPX in South Africa. So if you are interested in RPX and you're based in South Africa and you want to find out more, you can visit our website. It's www.webicourses.com. All the information is on there. The RPX course is divided into two parts. There's an online part that you need to do. So it's a little bit of pre-course reading and going into more depth of the pyramid that we just discussed, hey Tom, and then there's a 2-day practical course where we actually going to go through the pyramid and actually practically exercise and practice the methods and go through the system with people. So yeah, it's a brilliant system. I think the total course is about 17 CPDs, and it's at a brilliant cost. So if you're a physiotherapist, biokineticist, chiropractor, sports physician, or you just working in the sports industry, you're welcome to visit us at Webicourses.com. You're welcome. Our contact details are on there as well. Tom, any last words?
Well, I just think it's a great opportunity for anyone who's interested in looking at a different approach to creating change in how people move. I think it's an approach that you can use in any environment that you currently work in, and I think it will add to your practice.
Thanks, Tom, for taking time to spend with us, and hopefully we'll see all of you at one of our courses soon. Until then, be safe. God bless you.
Great.